There comes a time in history when a nation doesn't just rise, it awakens. Not with noise, but with purpose. Not in defiance, but in destiny. Today, you're not just watching a speech, you're witnessing a shift. A story written in code, carved in silence, and driven by one. 4 billion souls who believe their time has come. This isn't about flags or borders. This is about spirit, about vision, about power with purpose. So take a deep breath, open your mind, and feel the pulse of a nation ready to lead not by force, but by example. India is actively pursuing technological self-reliance as a cornerstone of its future power. The government and private sector are investing billions into creating a homegrown digital and technological ecosystem that can rival global tech giants. This drive for tech sovereignty spans across hardware, software, and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and quantum computing. One of the most significant areas of focus is semiconductor manufacturing. With the global chip shortage highlighting the vulnerability of depending on foreign suppliers, India launched the Semicon India program to establish its own fabs and attract leading global chip makers to set up operations on Indian soil. This is not just about manufacturing chips, but about controlling the foundation of all modern digital infrastructure. In artificial intelligence, India is pushing forward with initiatives like Bashini, a multilingual AI platform designed to democratize access to technology across India's diverse linguistic population. Unlike Western models that typically prioritize English or dominant European languages, Indian AI efforts are deeply rooted in inclusivity. This not only builds domestic strength, but also positions India as a potential leader in AI models tailored for the global South. The digital public infrastructure model, including systems like Aadhaar, UPI, and DigiLocker, further demonstrates India's technical capabilities. These platforms have scaled to serve over 1 billion users, showing that India can build complex, secure, and widely adopted tech systems without foreign dependence. India Stack is now being shared with other developing nations, showing India's ambition to export its model of digital governance as a soft power tool. India's tech journey is no longer about outsourcing or service work. It is now centered on owning the full stack, from foundational chips and cloud infrastructure to the algorithms that power modern economies. This shift is not only strategic but deeply intentional. India has rapidly emerged as one of the world's most dynamic startup ecosystems, transforming from an outsourcing hub to a powerhouse of innovation and entrepreneurship. This shift is driven by a combination of factors, including a massive consumer market, rising internet penetration, proactive government support, and a large pool of tech-savvy talent. The country is home to over 100 unicorns, privately held startups valued at over $1 billion across sectors like fintech, edtech, healthtech, SaaS, logistics, and e-commerce. Startups such as Byju's, Paytm, Zomato, Razorpay, and Xerox have not only disrupted traditional industries, but also created entirely new categories of business. Unlike earlier generations of Indian businesses that relied on global funding and markets, this wave of startups is building solutions specifically for Indian challenges, using local insight and innovation. Government initiatives like Startup India and the Fund of Funds for Startups (FFS) have created a more enabling environment. Regulatory reforms have simplified incorporation, eased compliance, and improved access to funding. The rise of India's digital public infrastructure, including Aadhaar and UPI, has also given startups a unique foundation to innovate at scale with minimal friction. Access to capital has grown significantly as well. Global venture capital firms such as Sequoia, Tiger Global, and Excel have increased their exposure to the Indian market, while domestic funds and family offices have begun playing a more active role in early-stage investment. Additionally, Indian startups are no longer just looking at India as their final destination. Many are now going global, expanding into Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and even Western markets. India's youth-led startup movement is rapidly rewriting traditional models of economic growth, showcasing how technology ambition, and a high-risk appetite can shape a new economic identity for the country. India is strategically repositioning itself on the global stage through a combination of multilateral diplomacy, economic partnerships, and geopolitical balancing. Unlike earlier decades when India maintained a largely non-aligned posture, today's foreign policy reflects a nuanced and assertive approach. The country is engaging simultaneously with competing global powers while crafting a leadership role for itself, especially in the global south. One of the most prominent examples of this strategy is India's involvement in multiple international coalitions that often have conflicting agendas. India is a key member of the Quad, along with the United States, Japan, and Australia, focusing on security and economic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, it remains an active participant in BRICS alongside China and Russia, which promotes a multipolar world order and counters Western dominance in global institutions. India is also positioning itself as a voice for developing nations, especially in forums like the G20, where it has advocated for reforming global financial systems, climate justice, and equitable access to technology. Its presidency of the G20 saw a focus on inclusive growth, debt relief for vulnerable countries, and digital public infrastructure, reflecting priorities that resonate with the global South. Beyond formal alliances, India is also strengthening bilateral ties through strategic economic agreements. It has signed free trade agreements with countries like Australia and the UAE, and is exploring new ones with the UK and the European Union. Defense cooperation has deepened with the United States, Israel, and France, while energy and infrastructure projects are expanding ties with the Gulf countries. India's foreign policy today is driven by pragmatism, flexibility, and ambition. It does not seek to align rigidly with any single power bloc, but instead leverages its relationships to secure its interests and expand its influence across regions and sectors. India has developed a unique and highly scalable digital public infrastructure (DPI) model that is transforming the way citizens interact with the state, financial systems, and private services. At the heart of this model is the philosophy that core digital services should be treated as public utilities, open, inclusive, and interoperable rather than privatized platforms controlled by corporations. The foundation of India's DPI is known as India Stack, a set of open API and digital platforms that includes Aadhaar for digital identity, UPI for real-time payments, DigiLocker for secure document storage, and eKYC for seamless onboarding. Together, these tools have enabled a population of over 1.4 billion to participate in the digital economy with minimal friction and at extremely low cost. Unified Payments Interface (UPI), launched by the National Payments Corporation of India (NPCI), is one of the most successful components. It facilitates instant peer-to-peer and business-to-customer transactions and now handles billions of transactions monthly. Its design allows integration with private apps while keeping the core infrastructure under public control, offering a level playing field for innovation. Another important pillar is Aadhaar, the biometric identity system that provides residents with a unique ID number linked to their fingerprints and iris scans. It has become the backbone for service delivery, welfare distribution, and digital verification across sectors. These systems have not only increased efficiency, but also reduced corruption, increased financial inclusion, and improved access to essential services. India's DPI model is now being studied and adopted by other developing countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. By building this digital infrastructure with open standards and government support, India is creating a new template for digital development, one that prioritizes access, transparency, and national control over critical digital systems. India is making significant strides in achieving self-reliance in defense manufacturing and advancing its space exploration capabilities. This dual-track focus is reshaping the nation's strategic posture, enabling it to reduce dependence on foreign suppliers and assert its presence as a global technology and security power. In the defense sector, India has embraced a policy of outmaneuver, or self-reliant India, aiming to boost domestic production of critical military equipment. The government has introduced reforms such as the Defense Acquisition Procedure (DAP) and positive indigenization lists, which restrict imports of specific weapon systems and encourage local manufacturing. Public sector giants like Hindustan Aeronautics Limited (HAL) and DRDO are working alongside private players and startups to design and produce indigenous equipment, including fighter jets like the Tejas, tanks, drones, and advanced missile systems such as the BrahMos. Developed jointly with Russia, India is also focusing on becoming an exporter of defense technology, not just a consumer. It has increased its defense exports to countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, showcasing its ability to manufacture affordable yet effective military solutions. Parallel to defense, India's space program has become a symbol of its scientific and technological ambition. The Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, has launched a series of successful missions, including Chandrayaan-2 and Chandrayaan-3, which made India the first country to land near the Moon's south pole. The Mars Orbiter mission, Mangalyaan, demonstrated India's ability to execute complex interplanetary missions at a fraction of global costs. India is also building commercial space capability through its new space policy and the creation of InSpace, which opens up space activities to private players. This is expanding the space economy and encouraging innovation in satellite technology, launch vehicles, and space-based services across communication, navigation, and Earth observation. India's demographic advantage is one of its most powerful assets in the global economic landscape. With over 65% of its population under the age of 35, India is home to the world's largest pool of young, working-age individuals. This youthful energy is being channeled into sectors like technology, education, entrepreneurship, and global services, positioning India as a future-ready workforce powerhouse. A defining feature of this demographic strength is the widespread proficiency in English. As one of the few non-Western countries with a large English-speaking population, India holds a competitive edge in global communication, customer support, software development, digital marketing, and consulting services. This linguistic advantage has long powered India's IT and business process outsourcing BPO sectors, but it is now also fueling a new generation of remote workers, freelancers, and global entrepreneurs. India's youth are also highly adaptable and digitally native. Millions are trained in STEM fields, with India producing one of the highest numbers of engineers and computer scientists annually. Institutions like the Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, and Indian Institutes of Management, IIMs, continue to supply skilled talent to global corporations, while online learning platforms and coding bootcamps are closing the gap for millions more across Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. The startup ecosystem is increasingly youth-led, with founders in their 20s and early 30s building companies that solve local and global problems. India's gig economy is also expanding rapidly, providing flexible income opportunities and promoting entrepreneurship among the country's young workforce. Global companies are recognizing this potential by expanding operations in India, not just for cost efficiency, but for access to talent. As the global economy shifts towards knowledge-based industries, India's young, English-proficient, tech-savvy population is emerging as a strategic advantage that few nations can match. India is undergoing a cultural resurgence that blends tradition with modernity, allowing it to project soft power globally while reclaiming control over its own narrative. For decades, global cultural influence was dominated by Western voices, particularly through Hollywood, fashion, music, and academia. Today, India is rewriting that dynamic by exporting its culture on its own terms and through its own platforms. Bollywood remains one of the most powerful tools in India's cultural arsenal. Its films now reach global audiences far beyond the South Asian diaspora, with increasing recognition at international film festivals and streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Indian content is no longer confined to melodrama and song sequences. It spans genres like thrillers, historical epics, and realistic cinema, reflecting a more nuanced and diverse society. Beyond cinema, India's soft power extends into yoga, Ayurveda, cuisine, and spirituality. Yoga has become a global wellness movement, celebrated annually on International Yoga Day, an initiative led by India at the United Nations. Indian cuisine, once seen as exotic, is now mainstream in cities from London to Tokyo. This embrace of Indian culture has increased curiosity about its history, philosophies, and art forms. Digital platforms and social media have further democratized cultural expression. Indian influencers, musicians, comedians, and educators are now reaching global audiences directly, bypassing traditional gatekeepers. This shift allows India to tell its own stories, celebrate its diversity, and challenge stereotypes. India is also investing in cultural diplomacy, with initiatives like the International Solar Alliance and Indian Council for Cultural Relations (ICAR), which promote India's values and traditions abroad. As global audiences become more open to non-Western perspectives, India is using this opportunity to assert cultural confidence and reshape global perceptions through its own creative, intellectual, and spiritual heritage. India is not trying to imitate any superpower, it's charting its own course with innovation, resilience, and cultural pride. From startups to satellites, from diplomacy to digital public goods, India is rewriting the rules of global leadership. It's not about beating America at its own game, it's about building a new one that the world wants to play. To everyone watching this moment in history, stay sharp, stay hungry, and stay grounded. The future is being written now, and India holds the pen. Thank you, stay inspired, and good luck on your journey. The best is yet to come.